Blazers' Game 2 loss to the Lakers last night. Dame was also forced to leave late in the third quarter after dislocating his left index finger while playing defense. X-rays did come back negative, and when asked if he'd play Game 3, Lillard responded with, quote, "Oh, I'm playing." We're now joined by Yahoo Sports senior NBA insider and TNT sideline reporter Chris Haynes, who is in the bubble. Chris, I'm happy to have you because I'm hoping for a good update here. What's the latest with Dame?
Well, it's similar to what he just said. He will play. You have to remember, keep this in context, that Dame has never dislocated his finger before. And so while he will be a go for Saturday, he's never had to play with a dislocated finger. He's never had to adapt to that. And so you would expect that he would probably try out and get some shots up today just to see how it feels with that ball and try to get used to playing with a ball with a dislocated finger. It is his non-shooting hand, which is good, but like I said, he's never played with that before. So that's something to look forward to see how effective he will be in Game 3.
So, Chris, any issue with Dame still being in a game that was Lakers by 30 points at that point late in the third quarter?
No, I mean, you question it at a certain point. You know, when it starts to getting upwards to 30, you question is it worth it to keep a player of that magnitude in the game that long? There's some second guessing, obviously. I did question why he was still in there at that point. But you look at that Portland team, one of the best three-point shooting teams, in this league, and you look at their resume and you see, okay, well, maybe Coach Stott thought, like, if they just got on a hot streak, they could get into this, especially with the way the Lakers have been shooting during this restart. So I see the understanding of that, but yeah, I definitely did question if he was in there too long.
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is now he's going to have to receive the ball. They're going to have, when they throw him the ball, it's going to be a little discomfort. But the question is, the way I saw him had his tape, he had the index finger and the middle finger taped together. And when I dislocated my middle finger, I had the middle finger and the ring finger taped together. So that's going to be very different, Chris, because basically you're going to be dribbling the basketball with 3.5 fingers because your 2 fingers are taped together. That's one.
Yeah, well, look, I'm going to say this, man. It would take Dame getting that finger amputated for him not to play on Saturday. And even still, he probably would still be a GOAT.
Right.
So he's going out there, man. Like, he really wanted a chance at the playoffs. He's there. Like, they taste success. Like, this is a team that really believes that they can take the Lakers down 4 games. And so that hasn't wavered none a bit. I spoke to Dame a little bit last night and this morning. That hasn't wavered. Like, they're in this to win it. And that's still the plan and still the focus.
One more thing.
I'm sorry.
Do you believe that they can they can beat the Lakers with a less than 100% Dame Lillard?
It's hard to answer that, Sham, because I don't know how comfortable he is going to be with that finger. And that's the thing. Like, I still think he's going to be effective. I still think he's going to have some monster games. But I just don't know. And then, does that finger get hit? This is the playoff now. People know you take the head off the snake, the body is going to collapse. So what's stopping somebody from...
deliberately chopping it. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's what I'm saying, especially when you look at the Lakers. This is a desperate team. A lot is at stake. They can't get bounced in the first round. There are legacies at stake here. So I can see all things being up for grabs.
So, Chris, when we spoke to you last, it was ahead of the series. We asked for your prediction. You said, I need to see Game 1. So you saw Game 1. Portland wins a close one. Then you got to see Game 2, unfortunately for Portland, because they got blown out and blown out fast. Where does that leave you now? If you have to predict going forward, what have you seen that has changed your mind?
Well, I've seen the Lakers hit 14 three-pointers, which is a franchise record in the playoffs. And, guys, you guys know, like, over the last 4 or 5 years, 14 threes for a lot of teams in the game, that's pretty okay. That's, it's nice, but a lot of teams are doing that. And so I say this. I don't know if that shooting is going to be sustainable. But also, Skip, again, going back to Dame, how effective is he going to be?
Yep.
And so that's why it's still, right now, it's still hard. I'm not trying to cop out. It's still hard to go out there and say, what team can we expect to pull this series out? Because you're playing with, J.R. Smith and Deion Waiters got some time now. A lot of people believe, as well as myself, that they should have been playing, in that first game. And they're some of the best shooters that they have on the roster. Why were they sitting? And so it's still hard for me to say. I want to see how effective Dame is. I want to see if he can adjust with that finger injury.
The biggest thing that should be concerning for Portland is that LeBron James had 10 points and they won by 28. LeBron James did not play particularly well, and they still, with under a minute to go, had a chance to win that game.
And by the way, he had 6 turnovers, and they won by 2.
So, Chris, this has to be concerning to Portland. And if you're looking at them, at you from just a reporter standpoint, like, LeBron has not played well. And we know what he's capable of. You talk about a guy that averages 28 for a career in the playoffs, and he hasn't been close to that. And we know he shoots over 50%. He's very efficient. He hasn't been close to that. So while we're waiting on Dame, and we know Dame can go nuclear, we know LeBron James can go nuclear, and this series will be over because he can nullify anything that Dame does.
Yeah, and that was surprising. That was surprising to see that they pull out that game of that magnitude with that gap in score with LeBron James scoring 10 points. You look at LeBron's history. When he doesn't play or when he doesn't play well, the team doesn't play well.
They lose.
So to see that type of performance, they lose. And sometimes by a large margin. And so to have AD step up the way he stepped up, that was big on both ends of the floor. He was a monster. But I will say this, is that if you're looking on from the Portland's vantage point, they've been so far been able to kind of contain LeBron. That I don't expect that to continue, but they've been able to contain him. Will AD come with the same force? Will the Lakers come close to hitting 10 threes a game? Have they solved all their ills? Danny Green is still struggling. KCP came out and had a good game. So those are some of the question marks that the Lakers still going to have to answer as the series progresses.
So, Chris, you know the Blazers as well as any reporter in the bubble or out of the bubble. The Blazers I saw last night for the first time in a long time, first time in the bubble, came out flat. They looked a little deadheaded. They just looked mentally and physically fatigued to me because we know they're not a great defensive team. They're probably the worst defensive team, at least statistically, in the bubble. Yeah. And yet, last night was horrendous because, yes, Anthony got off fast. AD was all over them because nobody screened him. If you look at his first 5 buckets, it's just like put back dunk, follow, tip in, fast break layup. He's just getting anything he wants at the rim because nobody seemed to screen him or contest him or challenge him at all in the paint. He owned the paint because nobody even tried to fight in the paint. How disappointed were you in just sort of Portland's effort last night?
You have to, there are energy guys in the league, Skip, where they're going like the Kenneth Faried when he was in the league.
Yep.
Like, those are energy guys, right? But Kenneth Faried is not a star. So sometimes you forget about him. And then he'll go in there and get those put-back dunks and offensive rebounds. You can't forget about Anthony Davis. That's on the bigs right there. Anthony Davis is a star. And like you mentioned, Skip, the majority of his points, especially early on, were off of action. Being in the paint, getting through the seams, LeBron finding you in the paint for easy dunks, putbacks, offensive rebounds. Then once he got in the rhythm, then the second half, that's when you start seeing him hit those threes. You start seeing him hit like a spin, drive,
step
back. Yeah, like he was feeling good. And so you get those easy baskets and you start feeling good. And then next thing you know, the game is over. And so I think Anthony Davis, he was the catalyst in getting the Lakers on such a good start to where it didn't allow Dame enough time to really get into the game. Because Dame, if you look at the way he plays, sometimes he switches up. But for the most part, he likes to get his teammates involved. He kind of feels the flow. He's a boxer. Like when it's in the offseason, like Dame is boxing. Like he trains, really does training in boxing. And so he likes to feel his opponent out a lot of times. But yesterday, I think things just got haywire. He wasn't able to get into the game.
Because can the Blazers win a series in which can they win this series if Dame doesn't go bonkers, if he doesn't average 35, 40 a night, and CJ needs to come along with 20 plus? Can they win a series with both of these guys just scoring in the 20s?
I think I think Dame or CJ have to score 30.
Okay.
You know, so if Dame is 25, CJ got to get 30. But if you look at their team, like Nurkic has shown that he's getting you 20 plus, 15 plus boards. Carmelo any given night can give you 20. So they have some options in which if somebody is struggling, somebody else can pick up the torch. But with that being said, if both guys are getting 20 and they're shooting 40% or even below that, that's not a recipe for success.
So, Chris, my 2 cents from a distance about Dame going forward is I actually think this minor injury, and it's still minor, will take a little pressure off. I thought there was way too much pressure on Portland to try to live up to their new role as the team that's going to knock the Lakers out in the first round. And to me, look at the numbers. Dame and CJ last night, they didn't even get up that many shots. They take 12 threes. They make a grand total of 2. Damian goes 1 of 7 from 3, which is just obviously it can't happen. And even worse, he had 1 assist last night. Cannot happen. I think the injury won't be debilitating for him. I think it'll take a little, he'll focus on it instead of on a bad game. And I think he'll shoot it a little better, even with his fingers taped together, because he'd better. You can't have an 18.1 assist game. You're going to lose. I don't care what CJ does. You're going to lose.
And you have to credit the Lakers defense. They weren't all outright trapping him. It was kind of like a zone up there. It was like